Welcome, Shiny Souls, and we are looking at this weekly astrology insights on July 1st. The chart is cast for 12 p.m. We're going to go over the highlights for the week. If you are listening to the weeklies, I will not necessarily give you any idea of where this is happening in your chart, but if you will go to the monthlies and listen by sign, your rising sign or ascendant, then you'll have an idea of where this is taking place in your actual chart. It is just a little overwhelming to do 12 signs, one right after the other. So to give you that idea. But this week, we do have some significant changes taking place. It is a hot week, meaning that a lot of buttons are being pushed. And we have here in this first look at the chart, we have Mars square Pluto. And as I talk about in the monthlies, Mars square Pluto isn't necessarily the easiest alignment to have. And so there's a need to integrate soulful will and ego will. And so in order to do that, a lot of our buttons will be pushed so that we go deeper and look harder at what the dilemma is. So this is a square, and squares are tension-filled alignments. And a square usually calls for some sort of creative solution. Mars is in Aries. And so in Aries, Mars rules Aries. And in Aries, Mars really wants autonomy to make his own choices and to take his own actions. And Pluto is here in Capricorn, which is the overriding structure or limitations, foundations that we operate within in the outer world. And so these two planets are at odds with each other. One reason is because of the different types of energy that they are, but the other is because of the elements that they're in. Mars is in fire, Pluto is in earth. And, unless you have things like controlled burns or you're using fire to create pottery or to cook dinner, fire can be uncontrollable or suddenly spark in places it's not supposed to. So, Pluto's trying to keep a hold on those things, but also to give it power at the same time. So Pluto wants to endow your ego with soulful power, but in order to do that, it may actually have to dissolve the ego altogether. And Mars is not in the mood to be dissolved as we speak because he is in Aries. This week we will have a quarter moon in Libra. We will actually, let's go to some sign changes before we get to the quarter moon. Mars is actually going to go into Taurus here on the 5th. And by the end of the month, he will be here close to Uranus, getting ready to make an exact conjunction. We also have a change for Mercury. We have two changes for Mercury this month, but this week we have a change of Mercury from Gemini to Cancer to join the Sun there. And then Venus later in the month will, Venus changes on July 17th, and this recording actually goes from July 1st to July 8th because I like to have a little overlap in the days. So when Mercury goes into Cancer, we will have a little bit of a different setup. Let me see if I can show you that. There we go. So on the same day that Mercury goes into Cancer here, we see Mars shifting into Taurus. That'll give Mars a little bit of a different feel than he's been in Aries. In Aries, it's not been a typical run for Mars in Aries because of Jupiter's presence. And Chiron, of course, but because of Jupiter's presence, things seem to be exaggerated or expanded in ways that were downright uncomfortable. Assertiveness and aggressiveness was really just, in some cases, too much to handle. A lot of anger floating around because of the Roe versus Wade or the gun laws, or a lot of, as I said, a lot of fire was there. When Mars is in Taurus, it's going to be settled down a little bit. It may even feel restrictive to Taurus. But Mars, again, is the ram, and he's still going to be trying to push his agenda. In Taurus, it will be values and personal resources that are being tapped into. So, if you feel that righteous anger is a resource, of course you'll carry that on into Taurus. But what you can do instead is allow Mars to help you identify what motivates you, the values that motivate you into taking action. In Aries, Mars was more take action, think about it later. In Taurus, it's going to be what value will this action have. Now, we're going over the 4th of July weekend. And while we're going over the 4th of July weekend, I'm going to go back just a minute to now. We have that Mars square Pluto over this weekend. And so I would caution everyone to be aware of what's going on around them and to use their abilities to help de-escalate rather than push your agenda. Help others who are pushing their agenda to de-escalate. Now, this is good for marches, going out and marching and trying to transform things. Pluto and Mars can work well together. So marches would certainly be something that would help. Pluto, however, is in the sign of authority figures and structure, limits, boundaries, foundations, that kind of thing. So Mars is pushing against those. And Mars will be doing that this entire weekend since he doesn't move into Taurus until the 5th, which is the Tuesday after the 4th. So keep a lookout for things that are going on in your environment that you need to be aware of. Saturn is also here at 24. And so Mars is making a loose sextile to Saturn. And Saturn is the planet of restrictions, foundations, limitations, and it's in the sign of humanities or groups you belong to, social networks, that sort of thing. So we have two planets here that Mars is communicating with, and also Mercury. And Mercury is at a quincunx to Pluto. And a quincunx means an adjustment is required. And Mercury is in Gemini. So we want to know what type of adjustment needs to be made in our own minds, with our own ideas, with our own communication style, that sort of thing that needs to be adjusted so that the Pluto power can come out and actually transform things. Anger is not always the best at helping us to transform what we're fighting for. So just know that it's going to be an interesting weekend for everyone. Just know that it's a good idea to be up and about notice what's going on around you. Gemini is very busy Mars is, again, Mercury is very busy in Gemini, communicating a lot, going from here to there. In their local environment, a lot of commerce is probably going on. A lot of, so I know that people are buying t-shirts and doing all sorts of things to communicate their ideas. Those are great. Gemini and Mercury works extremely well together since Mercury rules Gemini. So all these different ways of communicating what your beliefs are, what your individual voice has to say. Mars over here and Mercury. And Mercury is going to sextile Mars. Let's see when that happens. I bet that is this particular weekend as well, Mercury. So that is on July 3rd. That will be on Sunday. Mars and Mercury are going to be in alignment. You can see, that didn't quite line up the way that I wanted it to. So hold on just a second. I obviously asked the wrong question. That is actually on the 5th. And they will both be at the point of moving into new signs. And so whatever happens this weekend is going to move us forward into new signs. Now, moving forward, can be a multiple of things. I wouldn't say that we're going to suddenly reverse the Roe versus Wade decision. I wouldn't say we're suddenly going to have new gun laws. But after this weekend, things will shift, and that's okay. We do have to kind of organize and get together and figure out what we need to do next. So Mercury and Mars are going to help us do that. That will be Mars and Mercury both are still in somewhat of an alignment with Pluto and with Saturn. So giving the right orbs. So pay attention to the kind of lingering dynamic that came in over the weekend. So the quarter moon is on July 6th. And here's that quarter moon. The moon will be in Libra, who likes a little bit of balance and harmony. So after the weekend, after the intense Mars-Pluto square and Mars-Saturn square, we're going to have a quarter moon. And when we have quarter moons, that again is a square, and that calls for a creative working out. The sun is in Cancer. And the sun of the sign of the mother, nurturing, caring, emotional energy, and the moon is in the sign of balance and harmony, Libra, relationships, fairness, justice, those sorts of things. And so there's something about this quarter moon that means we need to find some sort of creative resolution between balance and harmony and the nurturing instinct of Cancer. And maybe in some cases, the mother energy can be smothering. So maybe you need to find some balance and harmony between being a smothering type of mother and the mentoring type of mother that teaches her children to make good decisions. So there's some sort of balance there, both, and this is internal for you. Mercury is there also. He's not quite within range of this quarter moon, but he's certainly in Cancer. And Mercury is helping to give voice to these emotions. Whatever the nurturing instinct is, it's a good time to tell people you care about them. It's a good time to ask for support, emotional support if you need it. It's a good time to talk about the different ideas of how people nurture. How do people nurture? what type of things do you like? What types of things does your partner like? Those sorts of things, because that's this balance and harmony, this relationship energy. So does your partner nurture you in the way that you need to be nurtured to feel nurtured? And do you support your partner in the same way? Do you give your partner the nurturing that they need? So there's this idea of trying to reach for what you want, but there's a slight shift that needs to be made, either in the way that is being communicated. So, you know, if you're making any assumptions, let them go and ask. Be curious, ask, and say what you really mean. And so, with that, you know, carried voice, that idea that we can nurture each other and support each other and care for each other. I am pretty sure that most women feel as if they've been betrayed, and that men don't care about this issue of Roe versus Wade. But I can promise you that there are men that do. Now, they've not had the same experience because they're not women. But there are a lot of men that will be affected by this reversal of Roe versus Wade. And if they just think about it a little bit, they'll understand that their lives have changed as well. It's not limited to just the people who no longer have the right to seek an abortion in most states. So, you know, a baby takes two people. And men have always had the reputation of not having a choice in these things, and so we then there's the opposite side of that, where if they don't have a choice and they don't care. So now they're going to feel the ramifications. Probably they you know how when you have something and you don't know how important it is to you until it's missing, that's missing now. And so a lot of men will suddenly realize how Roe versus Wade was in their to their benefit too. States are certainly noticing the discussions going on about what resources are these mothers who continue to carry children going to be helped to do that. There's conversations about when is okay to abort a child, when they get in elementary school or middle school or high school, because you know gun rights are allowed. People are allowed to go shoot children after they are born and in this world. I am not making a personal statement about my feelings about those things. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of ways that this is more complicated than it sounds, and it affects more people. It is not just a female issue. Like Black Lives Matter, equal rights are not just a black issue. There are a lot of things that are not just the group who's bringing attention to them. It's not just their issue. Equal rights for all is equal rights for all. And the groups can begin to work together now, because they're having this sense of the feeling that the world is coming, at least they're recognizing that the problem is there. And again, you know, that missing piece is now there for women, and whether you're black or white, but white women have not had the same experience as black women, and so they can almost ignore that they don't have equal rights, that black women are treated differently than white women. But when we get to this sort of problem, for instance, when we were fighting for suffrage, the right to vote, black and white women marched together, even though black women knew they were not going to get the right to vote in those marches. So groups have to start working together, and they have to keep pushing for what the majority want instead of letting the minority rule. And if you doubt my sincerity on that, just think about the Supreme Court is a minority of people making decisions for the majority, but yet they are supposed to be serving that majority. So that is a lot of what the Pluto in Capricorn is about, is that majority and the minority are both shifting. And for that to happen, the minority that is in rule needs to be changed so that they do represent the will of the people in our country, if that makes sense. So now that I've done my little political bit, we'll go on to something else. On the 6th, Venus is also sextile Chiron, which will give us a little bit of an opportunity to heal on that ego ride we're on with Mars just coming through Aries. And Venus is going to go about it in a more diplomatic way. Mars has been pushing the issue, but Venus will go about it in a more balanced, harmonized way, and with a little more diplomacy and some intelligence, because it's in Gemini. Gemini likes to have conversations where it compares both sides of the argument, and so we're going to see this comparison of the argument. Over the weekend, we will probably see a lot of people speaking out. Watch for someone who was not in the spotlight to suddenly become a person that we all recognize and want to hear from. And you know, people with nefarious motives tend to like to stay in the background. People who they tend to, but not always. Some of them are really loud, really obnoxious, and get a huge following, even though it still doesn't necessarily represent the majority. The majority is usually more passive and not out there making waves. And this has caused this problem that we have now, where the minority can rule the majority. And so now the majority have to step up. And that is a part of what Jupiter is about in Aries. Jupiter is going to go retrograde this month, and the 28th. And Chiron will go retrograde on the 18th. And so this individual will dynamic that we've had going on here for the last several weeks is going to the autonomy that people have had and or lost because of someone pushing their will, is going to kind of take a little bit of a break. Jupiter is going to remain in Pisces. I'm sorry, in Aries. Hold on, let me see what the date is that it goes back into Pisces. Jupiter re-enters Pisces on December 20th. No. November 23rd. And then when it retrogrades, it goes back into Pisces on November 23rd. And then we might see a lot more. I've mentioned before that with Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces, we can see an uptick in religious philosophies, ideas, so I even warned against cult type religions coming about. We're prime for something like that because people are tending to follow blindly during this period, and that's never a good setup for logical, realistic endeavors. So people are going to find themselves swayed by some sort of mystic, let's say. It's better to say something like that than to sound like I'm dinging the church, but some sort of mysticism. And Neptune has been in Pisces for a while now, and Jupiter was there last year, which gave rise to this idea of people knowing God's will and taking over his job of judging others rather than leaving that to God. So people are taking on authority that they were never endowed with. The only true authority you have is your free will to choose for yourself, not for others. So let's see. The Sun will square Chiron on the 8th, and the Sun square Chiron is again bringing up this idea of healing. Yet the Sun will be in Cancer, and Chiron will still be in Aries. So how do we blend how do we integrate two various ideas that exist together within us, within one person? So when the Sun squares Chiron, we're going to have that brought up for us to notice and for us to try to find a creative solution for, because we are complicated beings, and the idea of autonomy, most people believe that gives them free will to make any choice they want, but they're not necessarily considering the feelings or they what they want doesn't support something somebody else needs. The emotional need, safety, and security. So, and it goes the other way too. Your need for emotional safety and security may not allow someone else to make their own choices. So however that comes up for you, just know that there is a way for both elements, both ideas, autonomy and support and nurturing, to coexist without infringing on the other's rights, or the other's desire. So the Sun in Cancer is going to certainly desire nurturing, caring, being at home, having a good cooked meal, maybe getting a nice hug, all of those things. But when you're hugging somebody too tight, they're not actually able to then go and do the things that they want to do. The same thing, if they're off doing their own thing, you're lacking the love and nurturing that they could provide you. So but this is an internal, this is within you debate. How can you nurture yourself? How can you acknowledge the emotional needs you have while remaining autonomous, while remaining able to make your own decisions? Does caring for someone else mean that you no longer get to care for yourself in the way that you need and to go after your desires? Do your desires limit your ability to be emotionally close and nurturing with people you do care about? So that is all happening within you. It's the two various ideas within you that is trying to find some equilibrium. And so this is the week, of course, for that to come up for you, and for all of us actually. So Mars, though, is going to be in Taurus, and that is going to bring up other types of safety and security, like financial. How you feel about your gifts and talents? Do you have the self-confidence to move forward, or to take action on things you want to do, using those gifts and talents? And it could be the negative side. The negative experience of Mars in Taurus would be being self-defensive, or assertive when someone asks you to share some of your personal resources and you don't feel that you want to. So you could be over assertive in your response. The other option is that Mars gives you a little bit of drive, a little bit of bravery and courage to give some of those talents and gifts that you already possess a voice, a way to something to do that demonstrates those gifts and talents. So Mars likes to take action, and in Taurus, he's going to take action based on your personal resources, whether those are physical, monetary, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, even. So all of those are resources that you have within you that you can use to better the world. And Mars is going to push you to use some of those resources to do that. Now, mind you, these resources belong to you. It's your time, it's your money, it's your talent, it's your gift. It is your responsibility to decide, and your right to decide, how those resources are used. Guard against becoming resentful. So if someone is asking you to do something for them, and you know that you are going to resent doing it, because Mars can bring about this passive aggressive energy. If you know you're going to regret doing it, it's okay to say, I do not have that to give right now. It doesn't mean you don't have it. It just means you don't have it to give right now or for that. And that's okay, because it is yours. It is yours to decide how you use it. On the other hand, if it's a talent or gift that you've underestimated or that's gone unused, Mars may bring that up, and you may find that, oh, I actually really do like doing this. I like this way of seeing myself. And so your values and your confidence are being demonstrated by the things that you do. And that's another thing to remember, is Taurus has a lot to do with what we value. So if you value your time, your money, the resources that you have, and the talents and the gifts that you have, you'll use them in a specific way. If they are undervalued, you will use them in another way. So for instance, you have a certain amount of time to put towards a project, and your sister calls and needs you to do something. So that time, you're trading that time to go and do the thing that your sister has asked you to do or needs you to do. Yet you are undervaluing your need to do this other project and your desire to move this other project along. And a lot of times that's what we do. We think, oh, I can do that later. Maybe what your sister needs you to do could be done later. Maybe you could ask, can we do this later? And then make a decision based on that. But without that communication, your sister may not even know that there is something else you need to be focused on at the moment. For instance, when I record these, I turn my phone off. If I don't turn my phone off, I can promise you someone will call and interrupt my process, and I'll have to start all over again. So then it takes me twice as much time. So if you have something planned, you're putting something out there that you feel you need to do, that uses your talents and gifts, that helps with your personal resource situation or your self-esteem, or expresses your values, give that priority. Allow yourself to be your top priority. And others will do the same. And that's fine. That's good. Okay. So I think I've probably, between the square and the other alignments, we've talked pretty much about everything that is going to be happening this week. It is a tough week. I will tell you that, because of the Mars-Pluto square, Mars-Saturn sextile. It is going to be a tough rest of the year, And again, if you are listening to this and you are wondering where this is taking place in your chart, you can call and ask for a personal reading, and we will go over these alignments for you personally based on your natal chart. And in addition, you can listen to the monthlies, and that will give you an idea based on your rising sign where these things are taking place in your chart and how they would affect you. So in this video, what I talk about is in general for everyone. In the monthlies, I actually give the monthly by rising sign, ascendant sign. So what is on this cusp at the time of the day, the chart. But the detail is in both the monthly and the weekly. So planetary wise, it's in the monthly. Overall, house wise, it's in the monthlies. Detail wise, it's in the weekly. Sorry about that. I confused that. So we're going to end this, and if this is uploaded, so are the monthlies. So have fun. I will see you next week. I have enjoyed this. I hope this wasn't too long. But we're going to have a lot to talk about for the rest of the year. So, stay tuned, stay aware, and I will see you next time. Have a good week.